Welcome everyone, join us today as we follow the incredible journey of Lee Kerslake, the legendary drummer known for his work with Uriah Heep and Ozzy Osbourne. So let's dive in. Lee Gary Kerslake, born the 16th of April 1947 in Bournemouth, Hampshire, now known as Dorset, England. Lee's passion for music began in 1958 while attending Winton and Moordown School for Boys. Initially drawn to the piano, his interest shifted to drums after being captivated by the percussionist in the Ted Heath Band at a dinner dance. At 14, he joined his first band, the Phantoms, with school friends, sporting black outfits and Lone Ranger-style masks. The Phantoms eventually evolved into Tony Satin and the Planets, featuring Martin Roswell and David Rawlings on guitars, Jeff Adams on bass, and Tony Letts on vocals. In 1963, Lee sought more skilled musicians and held auditions at the Burlington Hotel in Boscombe. This led to the formation of a new band with guitarist Timothy Large, keyboardist Bob Michaels, bassist Bill Jacobs, and guitarist Graham Sid Austin. Tony Letts remained as the vocalist. They named themselves Tony and the Trackmarks, later shortened to Trackmarks after Lee's mother commented on muddy track marks on the carpet. Lee's father, Eric, managed the band, securing gigs and equipment. The group played hits from the Beatles, Kinks, and Animals, debuting on April 10, 1964, at Holdenhurst Village Hall. In early 1965, Large, Michaels, and Jacobs left, forming Bob Michaels' band, which later became Dave Anthony's Moods. Lee and Letts then recruited organist Gary Rice, bassist Ted Rawls, and guitarist Graham Wes Douglas from the Master Sounds, with Austin departing but not replaced. During the summer, the band entered and won a heat of the National Talent Contest organized by the People newspaper while performing at Butlin's Holiday Camp in Bognor Regis. In October, they won the area final in Clacton and advanced to the grand final at the New Victoria Theatre in London. They lost to comedian Dave Thomas but received a runner-up prize of £750, buying a much-needed new van with the money, which greatly improved their travels for gigs. In early 1967, Tony Letts left, and Ted Rawls took over vocals, with Lee adding harmonies. By the end of 1967, Lee sought to advance his career, whether with the Trackmarks or solo. His break came when Paul Newton visited the Kerslake home after a Trackmarks gig at the Pavilion Ballroom. Newton offered Lee £25 a week, more than his job at his father's scrapyard, to join his son Paul Newton's new band, the Gods. Excited, Lee seized the opportunity, packed his drum kit and clothes, and drove 60 miles to Andover, Hampshire, to meet his new bandmates. The Gods evolved from a Hatfield school group, the Juniors, and featured eventual Rolling Stones guitarist Mick Taylor, the Glasscock brothers, bassist John and drummer Brian, second guitarist Alan Sharklock, and vocalist Malcolm Collins. After several changes in personnel, the struggling blues band finally imploded with the defection of Mick Taylor to John Mayall's Bluesbreakers in June 1967 as a replacement for Peter Green. The Gods, then keyboard player, Ken Hensley, moved to Andover, where he endured a miserable existence living out of a van while mulling over his options. Over time, he met bassist Paul Newton and his father, a prospective manager who offered to help them out if they could assemble a new band. By the time Lee pulled into town, they had recruited guitarist Joe Konas from Tony Ventures and the DCs. In the autumn of 1967, the band signed with the Harvey Block Agency, who secured them plenty of work, including a prized Saturday night residency at the Marquee Club in Wardour Street. With their workload increasing, the band moved to London. Paul Newton left to join Mick Box and David Byron in Spice, taking his manager father with him. Lee invited his friend Greg Lake from Poole to join, but Lake left after a few months following a disagreement. Lake went on to join Robert Fripp in the early stages of King Crimson. This led to the return of original bassist John Glasscock just weeks before the band recorded their debut album at Abbey Road Studios. Their debut album, Genesis, showcased the band transitioning into psychedelia and progressive rock. Released alongside the non-album single Baby's Rich, the album didn't gain traction. The follow-up concept album, To Samuel A. Son, also failed to impress both the public and critics. A harsh review in Melody Maker criticized it as a weak attempt at a pop opera. Despite releasing singles like a brass-embellished cover of the Beatles' Hey Bulldog and Maria from West Side Story, the band struggled to achieve a hit. In December 1969, producer David Paramore enlisted 3 band members, along with drummer Brian Glasscock and percussionist Mike Rode, to record the album Orgasm, under the name Head Machine. Originally intended as the third album for the Gods, it was Paramore's project, with all songs written by him. The participants used pseudonyms, Hensley as Ken Leslie, John Glasscock as John Ledhen, and the 2 drummers as the Poole brothers. Marketed as an erotic rock album, Orgasm featured suggestive titles like Climax and You Must Come With Me, and was characterized by heavy rock music with Hensley's raucous guitar work. By 1969, Cliff Bennett and the Rebel Rousers had ended after 2 top 10 hits, including a cover of the Beatles' Got to Get You Into My Life. Bassist Chaz Hodges and drummer Mick Burt later formed Chaz and Dave with Dave Peacock. Bennett formed Toe Fat with Ken Hensley, Joe Konas on bass, and Lee. Signed to Parlophone in the UK and Rare Earth in the US, they released the single Working Nights and a self-titled album featuring a unique cover by Hypnosis. Despite positive reviews, the album didn't succeed. They supported Eric Clapton's Derek and the Dominos on a North American tour, but Hensley left to join Spice, and Brian Glasscock replaced Lee, who joined the National Headband. Toe Fat released one more album before disbanding. Formed from the remnants of the business, the backing band for Liverpool singer-songwriter Mike Hart, guitarist Neil Ford, bassist Dave Paul, keyboard player Ian Shehas, and drummer John Skorsky added Lee as a second drummer at Warner Brothers' insistence. Shortly after starting work at Advision Studios with Yes producer Eddie Offord, Skorsky left, reducing the band to a quartet. Offord tried to unify their varied musical influences on the album Albert One, but it went unnoticed. After a poorly promoted tour, the band split, except for Lee, who had already been fired for drunkenness after winning a darts match at a gig in Scotland. Shehas later joined Camel and Caravan, Paul joined Jonesy, and Lee found his place in Uriah Heep. The roots of Uriah Heep trace back to 1965 in East London, where guitarist Mick Box teamed up with bassist Ricky Hurd, guitarist Alf Rayner, and drummer Roger Penlington in the band Stalkers. The addition of vocalist David Byron Garrick in 1967 brought a unique voice to their blend of pop and rock and roll. By 1968, Mick, David, and Alf, now on bass, went professional, renaming themselves Spice and adding drummer Nigel Pegram. Shortly after, Paul Newton replaced Rayner, with his father handling band affairs. Ken Hensley joined from Toe Fat on Newton's recommendation, and Jerry Bron, in a joint management deal, renamed them Uriah Heep, inspired by a Dickens character. Lee had been approached by the band for months before joining after a whiskey-soaked darts match freed him from commitments in November 1971, replacing Pegram. Several changes followed until bassist Paul Newton and his father were ousted when Jerry Bron assumed full control with the creation of Bron's Records. Mark Clark briefly replaced Newton until New Zealand-born Gary Thane from the Keith Hartley Band completed the lineup. By their third album, Very Heavy, Very Humble, Salisbury, and Look at Yourself, the band had a modest career trajectory. However, the addition of Thane's intricate bass lines and Lee's powerful drumming provided a strong foundation that propelled them to the forefront of progressive and heavy rock. Their breakthrough fourth album, Demons and Wizards, showcased Lee's dynamic drumming and soaring harmonies on 9 catchy tracks. Packaged in a Roger Dean sleeve, it reached the top 20, followed closely by their fifth album, The Magician's Birthday, which achieved top 30 status and eventually went gold. The singles The Wizard and Easy Living achieved chart success in America, Holland, and Germany, leading to busy tours throughout 1972 in the USA, Europe, and the UK, including a memorable stop at Bournemouth Winter Gardens on May 26, marking the first of 4 visits to Lee's hometown over the next decade. In 1973, the year began with a UK tour and the release of Uriah Heep Live, recorded at Birmingham Town Hall and packaged in a lavish gatefold sleeve adorned with press clippings criticizing the band. Their sixth studio album, Sweet Freedom, also reached the top 20 and was recorded in France for tax reasons. However, constant touring and rigorous recording schedules strained the band. Ken Hensley turned to cocaine, David Byron to alcohol, Gary Thane to heroin, and Mick Box coped with occasional drinking. Lee felt overlooked in songwriting credits and marginalized by manager Jerry Bron. Despite internal conflicts and serious substance abuse issues, Wonderworld was released in 1974. Looking back, Mick Box admits the band should have taken a break to recharge, but they continued touring relentlessly. During a tour in America, Thane suffered an electric shock in Dallas, Texas, and 3 weeks later, when he returned, was in a sorry state. His heroin addiction had taken hold of him in such a bad way, he was dismissed. Tragically, within a year later, Gary Thane passed away on December 8, 1975, at the age of 27 from respiratory failure caused by a heroin overdose. To fill the gap, Lee enlisted John Wetton, a friend from Bournemouth who had just completed a global tour with Roxy Music. Wetton contributed to 2 albums, Return to Fantasy, which reached number 7, their highest chart position, and the less successful, High and Mighty. During Wetton's time with the band, tensions between chief songwriter Hensley and charismatic frontman Byron threatened the group's stability. Despite internal conflicts, the band continued for another year until Byron was dismissed due to his excessive drinking and erratic behavior, culminating in an incident in Spain where he smashed a plate glass door. He was replaced by John Lawton from Lucifer's Friend. Wetton, uncomfortable with the changes, resigned, and Trevor Bolder from Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars took his place. Sadly, David Byron would later pass away on February 28, 1985, due to complications from alcohol abuse. Under Bron's guidance, the new lineup recorded Firefly at Roundhouse Studios. Lee, dubbed the Bear for his rugged appearance, asserted himself with Who Needs Me, a song addressing his role in the band. Their ballad Wise Man surprised with a top 40 hit and a Top of the Pops appearance. Lee also became a face of Jägermeister in Germany, wearing a t-shirt featuring Firefly's cover art, boosting the album's sales. The year ended with Innocent Victim, which sold well in Germany but received mixed reviews. Its single, Free Me, reached number 3 in New Zealand and South Africa. Legend has it Lee's eyes adorned the snake on the album cover. In 1978, Fallen Angel marked Lee's final album with Uriah Heep for the decade. He contributed the poignant ballad Come Back to Me, reflecting on his marital breakup, but left amidst ongoing conflicts and manipulation behind the scenes involving Bron and Hensley. John Lawton departed due to constant conflict with Hensley over his insistence on bringing his wife on the road, with John Sloman replacing him. Lee's drumming spot was filled by Chris Slade from Manfred Mann's Earth Band. Lee planned to record his stockpiled songs, but a call from Ozzy Osbourne's promoter asking him to join his band changed his plans. Joining Ozzy alongside Randy Rhoads and Bob Daisley, they recorded Blizzard of Oz in 1980 and Diary of a Madman in 1981, in which Lee contributed to 6 tracks. Touring Europe with Ozzy and support band Budgie, Lee and Daisley asked for living expenses up front, which was granted by Ozzy's then-manager Don Arden. However, during a short holiday the pair discovered they had been sacked by Ozzy's new manager Sharon Arden, Don's daughter. Lee, still uncertain as to why he was sacked, remembered Ozzy had asked him to convey that he couldn't perform 2 shows in New York in one night due to his voice. Lee did as instructed, willing to do anything for Ozzy, whom he loved being in the band with. However, because Lee delivered the message to Sharon, he believed she harbored animosity toward him thereafter, he recalled in 2011, possibly attributing this to the dismissal. Lee and Daisley's names were replaced on the 2 album credits, leading to legal battles for royalties. Despite lawsuits in 1998 and reissues in 2002, with Kerslake's and Daisley's contributions re-recorded by other musicians, the legal battles left Lee bankrupt. In 2011, anniversary reissues restored their original contributions thanks to objections from fans. During Lee's stint with Ozzy, Uriah Heep disbanded. After a hiatus, Mick Box regrouped the band with Lee, Bob Daisley, John Sinclair, and Peter Golby. Their 1982 comeback album, Abominog, was well received, culminating in a performance at the Monsters of Rock Festival alongside Status Quo, Gillan, and Saxon. Throughout the late 80s, Uriah Heep faced hardships. Daisley left to work with Ozzy, being replaced by Trevor Bolder, and their label Bronze went bankrupt, on top of their UK tour seeing dwindling audiences. Sinclair joined Daisley, and Golby's health issues led to Fontaine briefly replacing him before Shaw took over. Despite these challenges, their lineup stabilized for a decade of global tours, including a notable stint in Moscow. Their studio output slowed to 4 albums, Raging Silence, Different World, Sea of Light, and Sonic Origami, Lee's final record with the band. In 2001, Lee experienced a profound moment in New York during the September 11th attacks, witnessing the collapse of the World Trade Center near his hotel. This event prompted him to reassess his life and relationships. Meanwhile, Uriah Heep planned a significant reunion gig at Shepherd's Bush Empire titled The Magician's Birthday Party, with former members Ken Hensley and John Lawton. Despite previous conflicts, Lee's perspective shift led to a reconciliation with Hensley, and the show proceeded smoothly, later released on DVD and CD, now an annual event. In 2003, during a break, Lee and Daisley teamed up with Deep Purple's Steve Morse and Cold Chisel's Jimmy Barnes to form Living Loud. They recorded a self-titled album in Florida, featuring 6 songs co-written during Lee and Bob's time with Ozzy Osbourne, along with 5 new tracks. Living Loud performed just 2 concerts in Australia during Deep Purple's tour, one at Melbourne Metro and another at Fox Studios in Sydney, both filmed and recorded. Uriah Heep regained their status through heavy touring across Asia, South America, Russia, and Europe over the next 4 years. However, Lee's health issues, including tinnitus and osteoarthritis, made touring increasingly challenging, with him leaving the band early 2007. Russell Gilbrick replaced him, ensuring Uriah Heep continued touring under the leadership of Mick Box, their sole original member. Throughout their 55-year career, Uriah Heep sold over 40 million albums and had a planned 50-year anniversary celebration in 2020, postponed due to the coronavirus pandemic. After recovering, Lee participated in annual Uriah Heep conventions in Spain with the Legends, featuring former members Paul Newton, John Lawton, and Ken Hensley, plus Phil Baker on guitar. He continued these reunions in Finland in 2009, 2011, 2012, and Belgium in 2015. Later, he formed the Berggren-Kerslake band with Stefan Berggren, initially meeting in his master's project. They recorded an album, The Sun Has Gone Hazy, in 2014 with bassist Thomas Torberg. Despite being diagnosed with terminal prostate cancer in late 2018, Lee remained active, creating an autobiographical documentary titled Not on the Heap, and collaborating with Jake Libretto on a new album called 11. During this time, he wrote to Ozzy Osbourne, informing him of his condition and expressing his final wish to receive platinum plaques for the albums Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman, which he had worked on but never received recognition for. Ozzy granted Lee's wish, wishing him well, and sending his former drummer the platinum discs in early 2019. Sadly, on September 19, 2020, Lee passed away at the age of 73 after battling cancer. He is survived by his wife Susan, and 2 adult children. Uriah Heep's sole founding member Mick Box said, "Lee was one of the kindest men on earth. As well as being a brother, he was an incredible drummer, singer and songwriter. He had a passion for life bar none, and was much loved by the fans, as well as anyone who crossed his path. Rock in peace, my friend, and say hi to David, Gary, John and Trevor for me. Love, Mick." And there you have it. Thank you for joining us in celebrating the life and legacy of Lee Kerslake. From his groundbreaking work with Uriah Heep to his personal resilience and determination, Lee's story is an inspiration to us all. Like and subscribe for more videos just like this. Take care and bye for now.